Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We'll be diving into Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, really focusing on syncing your users into IDCS. And before we get into it, there's a couple of things we want to review. And some of those pieces are just to clarify the AD bridge or provisioning bridge or some of the things that we've heard about in prior webinars. Feel free to check out those. This is going to be presumption that you've either reviewed those webinars or you know enough to be dangerous about those topics of the AD Active Directory bridge, provisioning bridge. And you're really here to say, okay, I generally know those options. I have a better sense for how I might want to move forward, but what I figure out the LDAP component, now I have users, or I want to get my users into IDCS. And so when we say, well, I already have users within Azure Active Directory or Entra ID, I have them in OID, I have them in Okta, I have them local for EBS, I have them elsewhere. Why do I need to get them into IDCS? So the reason you need to get the users into IDCS is so that IDCS and your application, we'll just pick on the Entra ID, Azure Active Directory, they need to know about each other. So IDCS needs to know that I, as a user, what is my username? And then IDCS is going to say, that's great, I know your username. I now can have a federated handshake with an Active Directory or with Okta. And then you can provision that user within IDCS in order to have access to other applications. Could be Fusion EBS, could be Oracle Analytics Cloud, could be other Oracle Cloud applications, but the IDCS is that jumping off point to say IDCS is going to have the handshake with your LDAP application to say, yep, this person is legit, they've been authenticated. Now IDCS is going to handle that secure authorization to let the user get access to the Oracle Cloud applications that they have been provisioned to. So that's why we need to get users and naturally groups from those different LDAPs in there. And when you think of from that larger ecosystem, yes, you may be all in on Oracle, have lots of Oracle applications on the cloud or in the cloud on premise. You may have LDAP, just a directory of users and groups in many different areas. Could be AD on premise, Entra in the cloud. You may be leveraging Okta, SiteMinder, Tivoli, OpenID, lots of different LDAPs, but each of these LDAPs has the ability to connect into your Oracle Cloud and to leverage that single source of authentication throughout your organization. I'm Mike Jellin, one of the co-founders here at AICG. Been in the data and analytics space for several decades, really helping companies of all sizes throughout the world, helping to better understand their technology options, how technology works, but most importantly, how do we align to business objectives, business opportunities, organizational opportunities, and technology being an enabler to achieve your goals within your organization. Here at AICG, we focus on, like I said, lots of different technologies, help with strategy, do implementations, but really at the end of the day, it's all about helping you and helping you achieve your business outcome, your organizational outcomes that you're looking for. And it's really done via a partnership with you and your team. And those partnerships, we definitely understand that our organization won't be there forever. We want to make sure that either we're getting you going in the right direction through an initial set of projects. And from there, taking what's been delivered by partnering with your team, enabling your team along the way in that project, so that we get to the end of the project or set of projects that your team is comfortable, is enabled, that they're able to continue moving forward with that base set of technology to achieve those organizational outcomes. Technology is very cool, very interesting. However, it's the application of the technology that is the most important part of what we're doing, why we're doing, and naturally that aligns with you as well, providing that true business value. So whether you're looking at Oracle Analytics Cloud, the OBI, any sort of data engineering, data infrastructure, AI, ML, have you covered there. But then we also have, from a functional perspective, folks that are really strong as business analysts or financial analysts, to align with different parts of your functional organization, whether that's marketing, operations, the logistics side of your organization, to be able to say, all right, having that functional knowledge, the understanding of business processes, the understanding of the data in these different applications, and of course the technology that underlines or underpins those parts of your organization. So we talk about syncing the users into IDCS. Let's dive deeper. For some folks out there, Oracle is the center of your world, and that's okay. You've all in on the Oracle ecosystem. Perhaps you've been on-prem for many decades with Oracle, and you've now added, or in the last number of years, you've added the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. And so now you have a hybrid Oracle world. And that's great. This also applies to you. But then for other folks, perhaps Oracle is just a key component into your application ecosystem, your enterprise, architecture. And yes, it plays a very, very important role. However, it's not the only application. It's not the core application. You have many applications, but you still need to have a unified, identity model. Whether that's through external or internal applications that are running in the cloud. We see a lot of organizations, Azure Active Directory. Great, that's very, very common. How do all of these different cloud and on-prem applications leverage that centralized identity? That is where the basis of what we're talking about. So that directory synchronization, when you think from a single sign-on perspective, so users aren't constantly logging into applications leveraging their same set of credentials. How do we, at least that's worst case if they have to log in multiple times, but it's the same login. The true goal is getting the single sign-on so that the user logs in once, and then anytime they open up any application, they're able to seamlessly log in. Well, that's Oracle, that's Microsoft, that's SAP, that's Salesforce, etc. What we need to do is sync those users and groups into the various applications so that those users and those groups, if you decide to use them, can be authorized to not only get access to that application, but authorized from the perspective of they can see this module within the application. They can see this particular dashboard. They can see this particular set of data. However you want to look at that, that's why we need to sync and push those users into these applications so you can do that authorization component from there. So the syncing of users, there's this within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, this concept of leveraging bridges. So bridges are just, think of a general mechanism in order to get those users and groups into IDCS so they can be leveraged in the different applications. And so depending upon your individual user and group directory that you are leveraging, it's going to determine which bridge you're going to use within OCI itself. So just to introduce you to a couple of the different bridges, and these are bridges that have their own webinar that we've conducted for you to dive deeper into each one of these bridges. So here we're just going to take a general overview. When we think of a provisioning bridge, for example, is all right, think of anything besides Active Directory. All right, you're going to use your provisioning bridge for that. You have your AD bridge, your Active Directory bridge for if you have on-premise Active Directory. There is the notion of a bridge for the Azure or Entra ID as well. And then there's an identity bridge agent, which you think of, all right, I'm going to use scripting, and perhaps I don't have a direct connector that goes into my identity centralization. This identity bridge is what you can use from there. And so this is the automating using the REST API in order to create and import users and groups. And so there's a couple of different versions of IDCS, and this is important relative to, well, can I use the IDCS REST API? Yes, it depends relative to your Oracle Cloud subscription that you have. So if you're enterprise, great. If you have Foundation, IDCS, you're automatically covered with this. You automatically have it, but you don't with some of the lower tiers of IDCS. So this is definitely important before you get started. Find out which version you're running within or subscription level you have within OCI. We're presuming we now have the correct level of IDCS. And so we're going to create a confidential application is the best way to think of this, where we first have to register it. And when we register this application, we're going to get some client IDs and client secrets. And we're going to need to leverage those. This is one of those things that you can go in and look at these IDs and secrets at any time, as long as you are the identity domain administration privileges within IDCS. You'll be able to bring these up. I know some applications will say, all right, here's your client ID, and you get one-time look or sneak peek at your client secret. You better write it down and store it in a safe place. Otherwise, you'll never get to see it again unless you regenerate it and you get a one-time shot at looking at it. This is different, where you can go in and look at that client secret as often as you would like over time. So once you register that application, you're now able to go onto a virtual machine that you have, and leveraging curl, you can go ahead and essentially import those users. You can do this at one time, you can do it a scheduled, the one off. So think of if you have local EBS authentication in your environment, and with that, you need to import those users into IDCS. You can use this script here in order to do that. Obviously, you have to plug in some key components relative to your environment, your IDs, that client ID, the client secret that we looked at earlier, and then, of course, your IDCS domain URL, and you're importing a flat file that you have gotten from perhaps an EBS administrator, or if you have access to the appropriate table within EBS, you're able to do an export. And so that, here you're bringing in that username and some basic information, but just to think of that username needs to match with, this username is what I log into EBS, for example. And so that username needs to be the same within IDCS as in this example of EBS. And that's a very important piece, because that's the link or the connection between the two. We look at, a little bit bigger here. You think of, all right, there's IDCS, an example of local on-premise Active Directory, able to take that set of information of the users and groups and push that into your public cloud. And from there, you can connect other applications, other cloud applications into IDCS. Of course, you're also going to leverage IDCS for provisioning into the OAC, Fusion, and other applications you have out there. So we mentioned this provisioning bridge, and while there is a dedicated webinar, and we talked about having logging in order to run the REST API, there's a lot of, it's a very small footprint that you need to have in order to leverage this. When you think of what that provisioning bridge needs to look like, very low hardware specs, even if it's virtual hardware. And then from a software perspective, it's very, very lightweight as well. So, but these are the key enablers. Of course, that VM needs or machine needs to have access to OCI and anything on-prem, because this VM will run on-premise in your environment. Some other things relative to the provisioning bridge. I won't dive too deep into these, but really just all about, think of things you may have a generic LDAP. And this generic LDAP, you might use this from a larger organization. This generic LDAP may even be what you use to house your external partners, your external customers, that they have been set up with their credentials. You haven't moved that into your Active Directory environment or your identity manager, and you may never choose to do so. And that's okay. We got you covered in order to get those users and groups into IDCS. The beauty is a lot of these different components that you're running on a VM has logging capabilities so that you can go and troubleshoot versus I'm just running things and hoping things work out. You can obviously schedule things as well. If you're running things on a VM with Windows, for example, use the Windows scheduler as well in order to just automate as many of these processes as possible. So we talked about a number of different items that relate to OCI, that relate to Oracle. But then at the same time, we understand that Oracle isn't the central universe for every organization. For those organizations that have a heavier investment in Oracle, they might be wondering, well, okay, I'm this one department or this one team is talking about going from an ETL approach to an ELT approach. I'd like to learn more. Or we want to do CI/CD or DevOps, or there's this modern data stack concept. There's a lot of ideas and thoughts and generalizations that are put out there. And one of the things that we offer our clients is to really work through and have the conversation with you to be able to say, here is the direction for Oracle. Here is a potential direction or consideration relative to other initiatives or priorities within your organization, and to say, well, what's next or what's in the future? Not 2 months from now. For you, it might be 6 months. It could be a year plus out, but you want to start figuring out and charting that course for where do we want to go? We're going to go from an ETL to an ELT. Well, that's not going to happen overnight. For a lot of organizations, especially in the Oracle ecosystem, that's not going to happen in 12 months either. It's going to be a longer journey than that. But you want to start planning and understanding your options now and just becoming educated. And we are more than happy to help come and present a higher level strategy, a higher level direction for where to go. And it's not a one size fits all. It's not a one tool or two tools type of approach. It's let's look at the individual pieces of take the going from ETL to ELT. All right, let's break that down into each component. When you think of the E, the T, and the L, and whether however you mix those up, and knowing that you have no shortage of people thinking about maybe starting to dabble in AI and ML. You may have a data science team. You may be thinking about, hey, we need to do more, or we need to do something with AI and ML. To say, great, there's the technology aspect, but more importantly, what problem are we trying to solve, or what insight are we trying to glean? Because without a clear problem statement or direction from how do we want this new technology to help our organization, help our business, it's just technology, and it's just nuts and bolts at the end of the day. And you have more than enough to do in your daily job and your ongoing job to figure out, well, nut and bolt turning. You need that application of what problem are we solving, what opportunity are we trying to address with this new piece of technology, AI, ML. AI and ML, very, very hot topic these days. You read a lot about it. Some of that messaging is just repackaged messaging of predictive analytics, for example. Well, that's been around for decades, and the processes and the things that you're doing around predictive analytics It's just been repackaged as AI. Well, okay, let's figure out and understand what are we really doing with AI. Is it conversational AI, the natural language processing AI? Are you trying to glean further insights from all the sales conversations that you have within your organization, all the documentation that you've received from external vendors, external contracts that you've implemented? Lots of different ways to leverage AI and ML. But at the end of the day, it's all about what can realistically be done for you and your organization relative to so many different factors: time, money, people, skill sets, appetite, a lot of things to weigh. But we will more than happy to have that conversation with you. Thank you for your time. We'd love to, of course, talk with you about your individual situation, your journey, help provide insight and input, and whether that's through partnership and projects, partnership and just coming up with that vision setting for you. So feel free to reach out to us on social media, our websites, drop us a line directly. We'd love to chat with you. No obligation on your side, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for joining today, and we'll chat soon. Bye.